I wanted to wait until after it didn't seem like it was like that personal. So welcome everyone. And I want to continue this conversation though about talking about boundaries with our families. And by our families, I know it like we're thinking about our families in the classes, but also our families and our personal families. So my question to you is, and Ellen, you were referring to this, this seems like it's a conversation around this time of the year that happens in a lot of classes. Is that right?
I used to talk about traditions. I didn't talk about boundaries, but I used to talk about traditions this time of year. And I did do it in a couple classes because I needed to have a sub. And it was a quick, easy lesson for a sub to do. However, our demographic is really diverse. And one of my colleagues and I were having a conversation, and I actually last year shifted this to like late January, early February to take it out of the context of like Christmas and pose it as like it's a new year, thinking about the things in your family and the traditions you've had up to this point. How do you move forward in a new year? And I think it was well received. But I think often when I had this conversation around the holiday time, I think it got very Christmas focused and not like traditions throughout the whole year, because traditions are more than just this holiday season for some families.
And that's one of the caveats. That's one of the things that I will say. I'll be like, this doesn't I mean, I said a lot of people feel like they need to start traditions at this time of year. And I had families who said we celebrate Yule. I had a mom who said they celebrate Valentine's Day because Christmas is kind of traumatic for her husband. So, I always, when we do talk about traditions, because families feel so overwhelmed, and I like to give them an opportunity to like let go of all the things they feel like they have to do. And actually, the Lazy Genius had a podcast. And when I get to my computer, I'll drop it in the chat. But she talked about how to start traditions. And one of the things she talks about is consider what you already do. I said, because a lot of families, like, you're already doing a ton of stuff. What are you doing? Oh, you do that for birthdays. That's cool. Oh, you do that for the first day of school. Oh, you graduated from something. That's awesome. How do you celebrate that? So I like to make sure that they know that they don't have to talk about the holidays.
Great.
So to speak, so.
Great. I think the common theme seems to be for parents is the stress, right? The stress and expectations, and learning that ability to like say no. And I think there is power in hearing each other's stories about when did you come to that point, and especially that fear that we have the first time. It's just like, oh, but they're going to be so mad at me. And then you say, no, like, if you really want to see me, like, it's too hard for us, you come see us, is like when you release that. And then does anything really bad happen? And if it does, then talking about what did, some people's feelings do get hurt and things like that. But just again, that power of support in conversation about working through that. The other thing that I observed when you were talking was also that ability to know where there's no leverage, sort of as Naomi was talking, well, I'm not going to get any farther on with that family or with that person, right? And I think that that's really wise. I mean, that's just like, that also plays into our sense of power, because it gives us more of a sense of direction and choice. And we just know what's next, right? It's just like, I can't go down that road because that's going to be a dead end. Okay, I know that. Okay, so now I work over here. So yeah, I think that there's real power. Hi, Carissa. We're talking about boundaries around holidays or traditions that families have, and those expectations and the stress that can come up, and having the sort of shared conversations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's been my topic all week is family traditions and rituals, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing it this week or next week. But yeah, it's been good conversation. It's always fun to hear too, just like the unique things that families do.
Well, and one thing that I loved about the Lazy Genius, this podcast, I made a handout out of it because I took it from the transcript. One thing she talks about is that, like, you don't have to be like, we're going to start a new tradition, right? Because sometimes it doesn't work. So what you do is you look back at your year and you're like, we loved going to the corn maze. We loved doing 4th of July picnic with neighbors. Like, look at what you did, put it on your calendar for next year. And then when the calendar comes back around and you're like, oh, yes, it's time for that again. And you're excited, then you do it. But if it doesn't bring you joy, let it go. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. You don't have to do stuff. I tell the story briefly about how I really wanted to have a tradition of having hot cocoa while we drove around and looked at Christmas lights. Well, my daughter gets motion sick and she throws up. So we tried that one year until we drove around until she threw up. And we're like, well, that's not a tradition that we'll be doing. And parents think it's hilarious, Merry Christmas. She threw up all over the car. So anyway, but that's, I'll drop the handout that I made into the chat. I think it's really nice because it's just some guiding principles on what do you enjoy doing. It doesn't mean that you're failing as a family if you don't have traditions, but it really helps people think about what are you already doing that works for your family, that everyone enjoys.
I despise cutout cookies. Like I despise cutout cookies. I have fond memories of baking them with my aunt. I loved it as a kid. I tried it like twice with my kids. I was like, no, we're done. Not doing it anymore. I have a lot of cookie cutters though, still.
I'm thinking about the other side of it. And in terms of if you've had experiences with sort of that sensitive issues of families that don't celebrate, or really more appropriately can't have maybe they've just moved to the area and they don't have family, right? And so talking too big about all these things that other people are doing can sort of contribute to a sense of loneliness or isolation, or maybe there are some, there is some trauma around the holiday. And so it's just like they're dealing with it in a separate way. So has that ever come up with your families, or how you would deal with that? No. Okay.
I did have a mom share this week that her husband is estranged from his family and it makes the holidays really hard for him. So she said they focus more on Christmas for the kids. But their big holiday is Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
They do, they do a big thing. So, I think that's important to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a beautiful article floating around Facebook that says, if you invite someone to the holidays, you need to invite their grief too. Like you need to make room as their grief as a guest. Did any of you see that? I'll see if I can find it. It was really interesting. Because they're like, if you invite somebody and you expect them to be all happy and jolly, like, if this is the first holiday without a parent or, something like that. I'll see if I can find it, because I think just acknowledging that as, for families, like, if you're inviting grandma and it's the first holiday without grandpa, it's probably not going to be awesome.
I haven't really had the grief kind of part of it, but I had a family, little one was just diagnosed with autism, and he struggles at these big family gatherings. It's just sensory overload for him. He doesn't want to eat any of this food, of course, which for a lot of kids, and just her working through, and he's 2.5, so working through sort of accepting that maybe those big family gatherings aren't going to be the fond memories for him, and maybe for her for a while too, even though they were when she was growing up, and but how can we do that in other times that were for him that will be some fond memories, So that was kind of one that came up in the class this week too.
So what else is going on? Anything else people want to ask the group, or experiences that you've had, resources that you want to share?
I was curious if nobody else has anything. I think I shared I have an abundance of outreach hours and I've been trying to figure out what to do with them. So I proposed some sort of, and I know this comes up and this is your area, Susan, but some sort of virtual. Because of course, mornings are busy with class. I've got all this afternoon time. I do an evening class. I don't want to do any more evenings. So I was contemplating a like lunch and learn or nap parenting, nap time virtual. Has anyone tried that timing? And then,
Yes.
okay. And then I was also trying to figure, okay, what am I even going to do? And I know book clubs never work. I thought about
a podcast.
that's what I was thinking about. And I got kind of excited about it. And then I was like, oh, that's gonna be a lot of work to figure out some podcasts, but like a podcast club. I think I'm just gonna do 4 each week, 4 weeks in a row, try it out.
I always
Was
stick
it
to like
successful?
30-minute podcasts.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of.
I'm like, you can do it either in the car, you could do it while you're washing dishes, just, throw your headphones in. I like
So
the
you
short.
have done a podcast one? Okay.
Yeah, and then I've done like 4 weeks of discipline, or,
Yeah.
just, I'll do like one time, like I used to do like potty training once a month.
Okay.
If like hit that point, and wanted information on that, then they could join in when they.
Sure.
wanted to. I
Did they
never
like the
got good-
podcast?
Yes, those that attended liked it, yes. The only time I had really, really good attendance was like the COVID shutdown year, when I would do it on, or like the first year that we were back in person with like half capacity classes. One of my night classes got cut because there was no enrollment. So I allocated those hours to like after bedtime. And that was the most attended time.
Okay.
And that one wasn't as like highly attended, but I also feel like personally, if someone signs up and shows up, they need that information and they need that chance to talk. And so I still think there's value in it.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes coordinators don't, so we'll see, but she's willing to let me, she's like, we'll just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what happens. So she is very open to letting me try some stuff,
Outreach
but then that
has
gets a
to
little
be-
overwhelming too, but
I do a lot of outreach work, and it is very much, you have to try it and you have to give it time to catch on, because it's not going to catch on right away, which is really hard for some.
Marissa, could you do like an afternoon playtime? Like an afternoon drop in and play, and like,
I do a once a month open gym in the afternoon, and I've only done it twice. Again, I had one family the first time, 4. Today is actually the next one, so we'll see. So I am doing that.
I feel
And I
like
think-
winter is a good chance, and
It
weekly.
might.
I feel like weekly in the winter is
Yeah,
a key to getting families. So they're like, oh, this is happening for the next 7 Tuesdays. Like, this is
Sure.
awesome. And then you can say,
Yeah.
because I think parents are like, was it the second Tuesday or the second, whereas if you do it every
Please
week.
check. That's true.
And then what you do is if you're able to make it free, then you're drawing in families, and then you can, grab them and get them to come to classes.
Yeah, when our gym is open is 2:15 to 3:15, so that's not an amazing time because most are still napping, but some are up again by then. But I have had a lot of families when I've, let them know about it, be like, oh yeah, we're still napping. So, okay. I think I am gonna do a monthly meetup for preschool parents that don't have any kind of parent day. For our 3-year-old preschool specifically this year, and try that too and see how it works. It ends up getting more complicated. I imagined like 1 or 2 days a month or something, but then we've got 3 sites and then you have to consider the Monday, Wednesday, Friday preschool and the Tuesday, Thursday preschool. And like, I was like, oh, okay, it's going to break my brain trying to come up with a calendar, but I think I'm going to
Well,
try that too.
And could you just do like a play time in the classroom? So not gym time. So you could kind of pick your own, and not even put out nothing special. It's just whatever is out that week that the early
Yeah.
childhood teacher is doing. And it's just, and if you know kind of what's going on in the classroom, you're like, come play with dinosaurs this week. And you know what I mean? If you know what
Sure.
toys are going to be out in the room, then you could cycle through them in that way.
Sure. Yeah, that's an idea.
And then end it with a circle time. So come and play, make some art, play with toys, and we'll end with a circle. Could even be like 45 minutes, but it's something to do.
Right.
I think sometimes we think we need to be flashy and fancy and come up with new ideas, but these are new families every time and they don't need much. They just want to get out of the house, especially in the wintertime.
Right. Right. And I know it's a perennial issue too in everywhere, but like that, yeah. How do you get to those? Like, I don't know how we advertise to those families. How do we get them in? Like, we get our own families over and over again that already know us, but.
Well, actually, oh, sorry. go ahead.
Oh, sorry, real quick, Susan. We did a fun night, an ECFE fun night that was free, and we advertised it for families who had never come to ECFE before.
Okay.
And it was like, if you've wondered what we're all about, come check us out.
Okay.
And we had families we'd never seen before. So
Nice.
if you pilot it, if you
Yeah.
advertise it as, come see it with
Specifically.
for families not in our program, and then you pre-register and it's free. We had a couple families who would just sign up for everything at night, and we were like, hi, this is for new families. They're like, oh, didn't pay attention to that. So, but that's where that registration is really nice. But yeah, that we got, I think, 15 families registered,
Oh.
only 10 came because it was 2 weeks ago. It was a lot of illness. But if you
Sure.
advertise it for brand new families, if you've always wondered, but never come,
Sure.
and then Facebook and Instagram.
Is that was my next question? Is that where you're advertising?
Yep.
I don't think we get to do Instagram, unfortunately, and we've had some restrictions around Facebook too, but maybe we can, that's
Really,
a little more.
really try to revisit that because that's where parents are. They're on Instagram.
I know they are. When I ask my families, where are you on social media? It's always Instagram.
Yep.
The baby's class is all about Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole marketing thing. That was the question I was going to have when you talked about like outreach, and then, that only 2 families showed up. My thought was, well, how is marketing going? And if your school district doesn't, so Carissa, your school district allows Facebook, but not Instagram?
I think so. And I get mixed messages when I ask questions, and it's our coordinator's 2nd year, so she's probably still figuring some things out too. But I just know there's a strong, like, the whole districts have to be giving out the same message, like from the district. That's a big deal. And even during COVID, we were really limited in what we could use to interact with families, and it's kind of been an issue for a while, but yeah, it's where families are. So
Because Facebook owns Instagram, right?
right.
And
So-
if you post on Instagram, it'll ask you, do you also want this posted on Facebook? Right. And so that solves your same messaging issue.
Right.
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 But all they need to do is to look at the demographics of who uses what social media. And I mean, everybody is on YouTube. Like, that's like 98% of everyone is on YouTube, right? But there is such a declining sense, like if I talk to undergraduate students or graduate students, like nobody's on Facebook. Like, it's like becoming, well, my mom's on it.
Right. Grandma's on there.
Grandma's on it. Yeah. And it has, some value, but it's like Instagram, TikTok, and now with all of the stuff, I mean, with Twitter isn't as big of a deal because there's not a huge, it's only about 15% of people are on Twitter. And a lot of people, as it is, are leaving it, right, for
Right.
other social media. But yeah, I mean, I think your marketing people kind of, so can you do your own marketing?
It's been a little, yeah, again, we have a Facebook page, and there used to be a couple different teachers like pre-COVID and that did it and would do like teacher highlight or classroom highlight or some different things. And then it kind of got, we couldn't really do anything anymore. And then now we're starting to do some events, like make an event on Facebook. I
Yeah.
don't know how much, like our Touch a Truck, we did a Touch a Truck last spring and we created an event on Facebook. And I think that's where a lot of the families came from. So I'm not really sure. And maybe I need to push my coordinator to like really figure that out or advocate for us to be able to, or
Right.
yeah.
Because there's
ECFDs
marketing and then
are-
there's communication, right? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
because you can have, you can do private messaging through Facebook, of course, right, with a group of parents, and you can connect with people through Instagram and all these, I mean, these all have so multiple ways, but yeah, I mean, so there's marketing messages, but then there's also teacher communication that parents really value. you know.
Right.
And the nice thing about doing it on social media, since they're already on it, is that ability to share with others, right? So if it's like, bring a friend, it is just that easy to just share, an announcement with somebody. So, yeah.
A question about Facebook events, because we used to be successful in Robbinsdale with and I actually am asking on behalf of another staff member because I haven't played with this myself, but we would offer these virtual information sessions, just a half an hour virtual information session about ECFE. And I have facilitated those. But what the value in it that we had was that people would express interest in the event, and maybe we would have 2 or 3 attendees, but sometimes we'd have 10 people express interest. And the person who was posting these, she was able to see who it was that had expressed interest. And when they didn't attend, it was totally fine because she could follow up and say, we're so excited that you expressed interest. We'd love to connect with you to share some information, or, we noticed you didn't make it to that evening, but that is just fine. We'd love to connect with you. And we'd get registrations out of that. So recently she has expressed that she's no longer able to see and get those to message within Facebook, the people that expressed interest. And so if that's the case, I don't know that we'll continue to offer these for 1 or 2 people to attend. Not really sure what the answer is going to be for that. It really was catching a lot of people when they would express interest. So I'm just curious to know if anyone else has reached out in that way, or if you have found a way to work around the Facebook updates like that.
I can't remember the last time we did a Facebook update or an event. We just don't, because we're afraid that we'll get that people won't register. And then we have too many family. Do you know what I mean? So we just haven't done that unless it's a big free event, like a Touch a Truck event,
The registration for these, because it was a virtual event, they still needed to pay something so that we could send a link. So we were getting this and we were sending a link. And I'm not sure now, I think what I'm understanding from the person who was doing that was that she's no longer seeing the information from the people that are expressing interest.
So Nikki, so if I post an event and you and Carissa click that you're interested, I can no longer see the names of those 2 people who are interested?
I am not sure.
Okay. Or do I just see the numbers, like just, yeah. could be a privacy thing, right? I mean, because there are people, I mean, the downside of the expressing interest is, you know, there's this one event and I think I might want to go, but what I don't want is to get a flood of marketing things for future events and all of these things, right? And then I don't know how to unsubscribe and things like that. So who knows, maybe it's a privacy thing, but, or settings, yeah. Do
I
any
know
of
on
you
my
use?
own Facebook, if you go into events, you can see in your own, like so-and-so has expressed interest in, and you can see how many people and who has expressed interest in various events. But I'm not sure exactly what has happened with the I understand from the staff member who was kind of navigating this, that there was a change in Facebook that prevented her from maybe the way that the information is being shared out on Facebook. Not sure.
Do any of you use YouTube? Does your school district have a channel or anything like that where things are posted?
You know, for us, we all have channels, like that's part of the G Suite in our own. But I don't know that it's being used for, like during the pandemic, we were asked only post through our own channel, and every district employee has it. But I don't know that it's ever been used for like outreach purposes. It would have been used for like, this is the video that we're asking you to watch, or preschool teachers recording books, or whatever it was that they were doing, you know, in that capacity.
Yeah, I was just curious, since it's so big for kids, right? It's like, I understand it's just like the number one way that children watch TV, you know, is through YouTube. That it would seem like a way, certainly, and I know during the pandemic, a lot of ECFE teachers were reaching out to kids that way. Yeah. Kelly, what kinds of ways does your school district, you're in Cloquet? No, you are, okay. What kind of marketing does your school district do? Do you know?
Pretty much Facebook. We have a community ed pamphlet, which I'm sure is pretty common. We have our classes in there. And then I'm always telling parents, word of mouth is our best advertising. Please tell your friends, because yeah, we are struggling with it as well. I'm writing down some ideas. So hopefully Shannon will be receptive to that and we can try that. But yeah, just kind of the same things.
Actually wonder when you're talking about word of mouth, Kelly, I've heard other districts commented that they've been successful with like family, friend, and neighbor events, like, so because we are connected to our families, the ones that have found us, but we're always wondering, how do we find those other ones? I wonder if districts, if anyone has anything to say about successful events where it really was geared toward ours, like the families that we are connected to, and the event itself is to bring a family, friend, or neighbor to that particular event. And I'm not sure what that would look like, but I've heard other people comment about that in the past, that they do get families to come.
When I was in Forest Lake, we did more like I don't know that it was that successful though, but we did like a bring a friend to class day. And we were it was a long ago and I can't quite remember the details of it anymore, but we had a few. It wasn't quite, we were a little bit like, well, are we going to be completely overrun and I don't think we had people like say, yeah, I'm going to bring a friend that week or whatever. So we didn't really know. We had a few, but I don't know. It was something to try.
A couple of years ago when we were having trouble getting families to come, we made coupons and it said, come try a week of class for free. We just had a little note on there to say, please message us. Excuse me. please let us know, if you're coming. That's when we had space. We are full. I mean, we have full with waiting lists right now, so we wouldn't be able to do that. But back to the family friend and neighbor thing, you could give your friends little coupons and say, give the people in your class coupons and be like, give this to a friend. It entitles them to a free week of class, So that's getting them out into the community, which would be kind of fun.
We have been meeting with our marketing team, and to my understanding, they are working on like a little postcard that's gonna be going out, like, as the census comes in each month, we'll give that information to whoever needs it. The postcards will go out, and families with new babies will have a QR code to scan. Brings them right to our website, and then we'll have like a bunch of offerings. We're full with wait lists for our big K classes and our ones classes, but our Beatty classes, we can't get them to fill, and we are an insanely massive district, and there's babies out there. We know they're out there, just trying to figure out how to get them to come. So I'm hopeful that next year we'll have a better plan, but our Facebook page, I don't even know who will post stuff on it. I'm not sure who's the admin on that. And there's not a whole lot that goes out there.
Can you create events on Instagram like you can on Facebook, or how you would just do like a post about it, or like a touch truck or whatever? Okay.
And I've found that on Instagram, you can't see how many, I don't do stories much myself on my own Instagram, and I don't watch them a ton. Usually I see all those little circles and I'm like, too many stories. But boy, oh boy, can you see who looks at your stuff? You can see who watches, because there's stats to see who watches your stories. So unless, obviously I'm pulling up my work Instagram right now. I'll put a post up and it might get, 3 likes or whatever. But if I do a story, I'm going to pull up my last story. Oh, can I not see it? Looks like I can't see my last story. Where's my history? Archive. I'll be able to tell. I can see like 25 people watched it. Oh yeah, here we go. So it'll say, if you go into, how do you guys go into the stats? Do you know?
I was just going to ask, for those of us less tech savvy, what is the difference between a story and just a post?
Well, I'll show you. So a story
is up within 24 hours and then it's gone.
So it's like a small, it's like a quick, so like I'm clicking on, here's the library. So the library is like, we just checked in some books. So you kind of scrolls through some things, and sometimes you can click on it and it'll go to something else. But yeah, it's a 24-hour, it's like a mini video, of so to speak.
Okay.
But parents really look at those. I've discovered.
Ellen, if you go to your profile, the 3 little bars up in the upper right-hand corner, if you click on that, that'll open up where your activity is.
Got it.
And the stuff you've saved and things like that.
Yeah, so I posted something on like the 2nd or the 8th, and it told me that I had engaged with 100% more than the week before. So you can kind of see that people are paying attention to your stuff, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I reached 74 accounts 2 weeks ago. And I think ECFE, we're different in that we require constant advertising.
Mhm.
It's just I just feel like that's the way we are. And just having it only in the community ed brochure is not enough. It's just not enough. So thinking of creative ways to do it. It's constant.
Yeah.
And helping the big people, the people making decisions see that is really important.
I've been
I can't
thinking
remember
about
a
that a
long
lot
time
too.
ago.
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm curious to know if other districts through their parent advisory councils or how active their parent advisory council is. If anyone does, I know in a previous district that I was in, they did their PAC or parent advisory council did like a legislative letter writing campaign. And they gave the parents a template and you could fill it out and it would be delivered. Like you could literally just only fill out your name and it was pre-printed, or they would give you various templates and you could write your own thing. It required families that the district that I was in at the time, they did it within their classroom time, which I think can be kind of tricky. I'm curious to know if anyone's parent advisory council still has practices like that, if they ask for classroom time, if they do it outside of classroom time. And the reason I'm asking it is because obviously we have a lot on the table this legislative session, and golly, if we could get 2 extra positions funded in the MDE to help Mike Brown, would that potentially, if our legislators all knew about that and how important it is, would that potentially impact the voice coming back out and the visibility of ECFE if we had 2 full-time staff people being added to Mike Brown's really very limited capacity to support ECFE, because he's not only ECFE, he's got other responsibilities.
We're not at all right now. Like I'm sure others, our PAC was decimated during COVID, but we've got 2 parents now that are really putting in a lot of work for us to try to build it back up and doing some fun things. That's not on their radar yet. I think it could definitely, I'm usually the staff. I mean, our coordinator usually goes, but then I'm the other staff kind of representative. So I would definitely be willing to put that back out to them. But we did that in Forest Lake when I was there, and we did it during class time. We just passed out little postcards that had just like a starter. I can't remember what it said, but just a little starter sentence, and then families could just fill out whatever their experience was. I don't know, families seem to enjoy doing it. I never had anybody be like, I don't think this is a good use of our time, or opposed to doing it, and I, of course, made it optional. Like, we're going to take a little time. If you'd like to fill out a postcard, we would greatly appreciate it. And we would get pretty good stacks of postcards to send in. And then they would go down too on that day, early childhood day or whatever too. But but I agree. I think if we need to do more advocating somehow, and as much as it can come from families instead of educators, makes a difference.
I will share that in Robbinsdale, our PAC was very, very diminished as well because of the pandemic. And last year we had a pretty big push to rebuild in the spring, and then kind of continued that into the school year. We in the push to rebuild, we asked every single educator to come up with at least 1 person from every single class that they facilitate to attend at this particular meeting. So we had maybe 40 attendees or something like that at this particular meeting last spring, because it really was at least 1 person representative of many, many, many of our classes. Then this year we continued that push, and so now we're into the school year, and certainly we don't have 40 people attending those meetings, but I think the last one was about 20. But it took a lot of personal conversations. We talked literally to almost every group member in almost all of our groups to get to that place.
Hi, Jenny, not to interrupt you while you're eating. How are the so now that you're here, we'll ask you about Roseville. So marketing, how is marketing through your school district? Also social media use? Can you do it, or can you use social media yourself for communication about your classes or with parents, whatever? And then your PACs, are they active in Roseville?
So we have a communications person who does all the social media. And there was rumor at the beginning of the school year that she wanted like more parent education content from us. But I've never done that or never given it. It just hasn't gotten rolling. So I'm guessing they would eventually want that more. But she does all like new event coming up, new class coming up. But I think also like we had a drop in and play at a park that was happening every week for an hour, come to a park and play with the ECFE group. And it fell off the social media calendar and didn't get promoted. So either me or my early childhood teacher would be standing at the park and nobody would come, even on really nice days that we knew. So anyway, it does require someone's attention, right? They did, so they're trying to get the Parent Advisory Council going again, and they combine pre-K and ECFE. I don't know if that's true in all districts. And apparently when the pre-K families sign up, they check a box. I'm interested in being on advisory council. I don't think the ECFE parents do, but they decided to do all the meetings on Zoom this year. They made 4 meetings like quarterly, and just had the first one at the end of November actually. And the admin really kind of set the agenda for those, and they decided to not have it be fundraising, but more at all, just more advocacy and helping with screening and things. And we had like 20 people show up. So I think the Zoom approach to the meetings is a really good one for families currently. And they are going to do some in-person volunteer things like filling screening bags and so on. But yeah, I feel like so much of the marketing for our ACFE classes is word of mouth. But right now there's fewer mouths to be spreading the word. So, it's that chicken and egg thing. One thing Roseville does that is really good for marketing, I think, but also is a little bit of a challenge from a scheduling perspective, is they have this drop-in and plays that are 3 days a week for an hour and 15 minutes. And they're at the 2 of them, the weekday ones are at a church near here who happens to have a really big gym. And then they have a side room where we have toys and things. So they've been doing it. I think Roseville's been doing drop in and play there for 30 years or something. But I talked to people from all over who know about this drop in and play. They're not even just from Roseville. They're coming from all over, taking ECFE classes in other districts. But it's just a great, and then I go to those and I circle around and check in and talk to them about our classes. So it's really a great outreach opportunity. And then on Saturdays, we have them at one of our pre-K centers. The only trick is, so I'm doing drop in and play 2 mornings a week rather than ECFE with parent education. So normally they would have multiple parent educators and one would be up there and one would be here. But it's because it's such a tradition, they can't let it go. And it's such a great outreach opportunity that is taking priority over our traditional ECFE classes. So it's not the best situation right now, but hopefully eventually they'll have more staff.
Do you find opportunities to do any parenting education during those drop-ins, Jenny?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I try, just like in an ECFE parent-child time, I try to make my rounds and talk with every parent there, although sometimes we've had up to 30 children, so it doesn't always happen. But, you start with observations of their child and question, like one of the families, actually our early childhood teacher is there, noticed the child wasn't speaking much and is over 2. So, you talk with them about that and help them get referrals and that sort of thing too. And sometimes they'll ask me really direct questions. And I think, if I was over time, they would get to know me more and be able to ask more direct questions. But again, there's 20 20 to 30 families who come every time. And you only are playing for an hour. So I don't always get around to everybody, but yeah, it's a great opportunity because then you observe them with your child and also, yeah.
I have one quick thing to share in our last couple minutes here. I've been, and maybe after I share the story, I can ask you all if you think I should post it on Friends and Family on Facebook as a cautionary tale.
Wait, Ellen, let me just quick check. Do you want me to turn?
Oh
off
yeah,
the-
you can record it because I
Okay,
think
all
this is important. No, I think it's important.
Okay.
So I can't remember how it started. I remember. A mom called our main number, our main like school number, and she said, I'm interested in classes about, I'm interested in ECFE. And our admin forwarded me the voicemail. And so I called this mom back. And I said, hi, I'm Ellen. I'm one of the teachers. I hear you have some questions about ECFE. She said, I do. And she was very, very pushy in getting her not yet 2.5-year-old child into our preschool class where the minimum age is 2.5, period. Like we don't waffle on that. She's like, well, is there some sort of assessment she can take to pass into the class? I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. I said, you're welcome to join us in January when your child is actually 2.5. And she said, okay. Right. I said, we'll see you in January. Registration opens up December, whatever, 1st. So then she started texting me, which I have Google Voice, and it was a text. She's like, oh, I thought of some other questions. How do I get immunization forms to you? And I told her. And then she said, I should just pull it up. She said, I'm curious. Do you have any books in circulation for this age about sex change, sex preferences, etc.? I'm assuming you don't, but I'm just checking because you never know. And I was like, oh, she's looking for resources. So I said, well, here's a book called Neither. I have some books I can send you later today, but I'm just about to step into class. And she goes, that would be great. And then I sent her a list from the U of M that supports families of transgender. I sent her giant LGBTQ support thing. It came from the University of Minnesota. I said, here's a big list. I said, check which ones you think might be appropriate. So here's me, right? Thinking, oh, she's looking for resources. No, she wasn't looking for resources. She wanted to know if we're reading any books about sex or sex changes to the kids during circle time. Because then she said, oh, I'd like to see the books ahead of time before you read them to the class. And then I was like, oh, that's what you're getting at. So I felt really stupid. And then I said, oh, I'm sorry for the confusion. I thought you were looking for resources for your family. She's like, no, thanks for the clarification. So I felt real dumb. And I just wanted to let you all know that there are some families, and she has never come to class, not once. But the first question she had was, do you read books about sex changes to preschoolers? So just so you know, parents are asking those questions, and I just don't want you to be like I was just, totally sideswiped by it. And I was like, wow, why don't you come to a class and see what we're actually doing before you assume the worst. And boy, is she going to love my sexuality week. She's going to love it. She's going to love it when I pull out all my books, because I don't care where you stand. I will provide books for everyone in this program. And I have plenty of families. I have plenty of families who have all sorts of family dynamics, and I'll be, so anyway, I'm not giving them to your children to read. I'm giving them to you if you need them for your family. So anyway, I don't know. I feel like it's a cautionary tale. I wish that somebody had been like, oh, watch out. Some families are asking about the books you're reading. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it, but I felt really stupid. And it would have been fine if it hadn't been in text. I think the reason it was weird, I was reading it, I was responding, it was time for class. Maybe that was where it went south, but anyway.
Well, don't be so hard on yourself, Ellen. I mean, we're always going to be blindsided, and and in this day and age, just with all of the, when you read about like stuff going on in Florida and taking out books, you know, related to gays and gay marriage, or, you know, gay families or whatever in the Florida public schools, and, you know, things like that. You know, stuff like that is, it's bound to crop up, and especially depending on what parts of states we are, you know, but we're always going to be blindsided because, you know, we just roll along, and, you know, and because you're super helpful and you're willing to, you know, answer anybody's questions, and just all the stuff we've been talking about this time, you know, about you want to, you know, you want the program to have the face that it has, which is warm and welcoming. And, you know, we're all about information and support and sharing, and, oh, you have a question here, and then, whoa, that's what the question was. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like your way of handling it though was excellent.
I think it would have been fine if we'd have been in person. You know, but the fact that it was over text, I think, yeah. So anyway, just so you all know, those questions might come at you. And you may have parents who are just like, I want to see what you're reading. And you can be like, sure, okay, you can see what we're reading. That's fine. And you'll see that we read seasonal books to the kids.
I think your response probably, I don't know, hopefully, maybe it didn't, maybe she was like, that's not what I meant, but like your assumption of what she was asking says a lot about like your assumption of where families are at, that like, yeah, families do want this information. You don't want this information, but a lot of families actually do want this information, and it's an important topic. And
that's a really good point. Well, and she signed up for winter session, so I must not have offended her with my giant list of LGBTQ stuff. Hi, Jenny. So there's that. Well, thanks, but I don't, yeah, I'm thinking about writing a post and just saying, just so you know, parents are, this is something that may come up with new families to your program.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And like I said, I think we're blindsided by stuff, and sometimes, you know, yeah, I mean, I think that's another good teachable moment is maintaining our poise. And, you know,
I don't get blindsided much anymore. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
that's the thing.
You've done this so many years, and you're like, nothing phases me. And then I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys.
There
That
you
makes me
are.
feel better. So I felt real dumb.
Oh,
All right. Well, it's 1 o'clock. My dog wants a walk.
yeah.
knows what time it
Okay.
is.
Well,
Here
this
she
has
is.
been
See?
great. Thank you
Here she
both.
is.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you again next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.